of democracy. Now let's move to NDLEA. Chairman of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Brigadier General Buba Marwa, retired, has justified the decision of the Anti-Narcotic Agency to go after the assets of drug barons and traffickers as part of ongoing offensive action against illicit drugs and cartels. The NDLEA chief, represented by the secretary to the agency, Shedrack Haruna, said the action of the agency is strengthened by the forfeiture regime following the passage of the Proceeds of Crime Act 2022. Let's share some of their activities.
The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, and its partners kick off activities ahead of the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. Reports have shown that Nigeria's drug prevalence rate is alarming, with a 15% rate almost tripling the global prevalence rate of 5.5%. The NDLEA is scaling up action on drug demand reduction as well as ramping up its crackdown on barons.
Our prosecution efforts have continued to achieve successes in courts, given the painstaking investigations and diligence in the prosecution of cases. Our watertight case preparations are unassailable. These have been further strengthened with our forfeiture regime with the passage of Proceeds of Crime Act. Apart from conviction, the assets of the convicts used as instrumentality of the crime or the proceeds derived from the crime will be forfeited to the federal government.
The theme for this year's World Drug Day, the evidence is clear, invest in prevention, indicates the enormity of the global drug problem.
Further projections show that by 2030, there will be a 40% increase in the use of drugs in Africa based on the population of young people. And this is extremely concerning if we consider that 2030 is only 6 years away.
The NDLEA and its partners believe that with sustained efforts, they are right on track in tackling the problem. Sifon ACN, TVC News, Abuja.
Joining me in the studio to talk about is the NDLEA Secretary, Shedrack Haruna. Of course, he's live in the studio with me to shed more light on the agency's stance on the passage of the Proceeds of Crime Act 2022. Thank you very much for joining me in the studio.
Thank you very much.
I think we can't overemphasize this. The evidence is clear. Invest in prevention. The theme for this year suggests the drug problem is a big one. Should we be worried?
Well, I think if we continue the way the agency is working with the support of the government, which we are receiving now, then I don't think there's any cause for worry.
According to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, approximately 14.4% of Nigerians aged 15 to 64 engage in drug use. This percentage is almost 3 times higher than the global drug use prevalence of 5.5%. How did we get here?
Well, I think it's something that was a survey that was conducted in 2018. And that survey is still the valid one because we've not done another one to measure the effort done so far. Yeah. But of course, it has been a sort of, if I may call it, neglect in the past, or something not action that is not being seen that people should be concerned with. And but now that report came out, actually the government came out fully to see how they can stem the tide. And from 2001 till date, I think effort has been on the high side, seeing how to actually reduce the prevalence of drug use, reduce the prevalence of drugs on the street, and we're yet to measure that. But from what we have seen from our partners and from the snippets we got from international partners and embassies, it shows that the number of Nigerians who are in prisons abroad have reduced considerably for drug-related offenses. And that shows that, yes, from that period till now, there's a lot of effort being put in, and government is working hard to ensure that we don't have so many of these drugs on our road, on our street, and no drug traffickers is allowed to come in. And this effort, if it continues the way it's going, I believe that in the coming years, drug tides or there'll be a huge reduction. But of course, that means concerted effort and sustained action as is currently being done. So it's we are yet to measure it because the measurement, the fund to measure it, which is to conduct the research, is quite huge. But we're pleading with partners to see how they can come in. The last one was done with the support of EU, and the government is also trying to make effort to see how they can conduct one. But like I have said, we're seeing the reduction. But of course, there's still move by so many people coming in. In fact, at a point, we felt that there should be declared the issue of drug in Nigeria there should be an emergency.
A state of emergency.
A state of emergency to be declared because of the drug prevalence on the street, because of the huge cache of drugs found with bandits. And you see that this drug on the street is not just for youth, but if we're able to work together like we're doing currently with our partners and government is in support as it's doing, then certainly we'll reduce the drug on the street, we'll reduce banditry, we'll reduce terrorism, we'll reduce kidnappers and violent extremism as well as domestic violence.
You know, if you look at, you talked about the streets, you look at how commonly these use drugs are. You look at opioids, you look at cocaine, tobacco, all these stimulants.
Yes.
How do we get all of these things out of the street? Because it's really damaging, not just the youth. Some people, even you see older men, older people even using it to suppress depression.
Well, that's true. The impact or the effect of drug use on health cannot be overemphasized. Yeah. In fact, the impact is huge, not just on health and safety, but also on the economy, as well as security. We have seen that drug is being used everywhere. But how do we get it out of the street? It's not just government alone. It's a whole society approach, which includes the media like you.
Of course.
We all have to work together. It's a common and shared responsibility. And when it becomes such a responsibility and a concern to the whole society, we should all come together to fight it. I'm just coming back from a walk against drugs, sponsored by MTN. That's where I'm coming from now. We try to educate the people to tell them the impact of drugs. And the whole of Abuja is going to be painted red and yellow this morning because we're on the street everywhere campaigning against drug use.
There's been campaign for legalization of cannabis, also known as marijuana in the country. What's the stance of NDLEA?
You see, NDLEA has no decision on the issue because we are an agent of the government enforcing the law. Yeah. The extant law prohibits cannabis, the use of cannabis. So we have to enforce that. And government has not come out clearly, regardless of the debate going on, to say, we want to change the law. The law as it stands today prohibits cannabis. Yeah. And we are enjoined to enforce that law and to ensure that the law is enforced to the hilt. And that's why we're still prosecuting them. But if the law changes tomorrow, then as an agency of the government, we have to obey the law because nobody is above the law. Exactly. But for now, the extant law is prohibition of cannabis.
All right. Thank you very much. It's really nice to have you in the studio, Mr. Aruna Shedrack.
Thank you.
Really, really nice.
Thank you.
And of course, we're still talking about joining yourself because it's to talk about